Hey everyone, welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. This is a watch review video. We'll be taking a look at the Vario 1945 field watch. Design-wise, it's based on what's known as the Dirty Dozen. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the details and specs on this next new offering from the micro brand Vario. If you end up liking what you see in this video, hit that like button. If you want to stick around and get notifications, hit the subscribe and the bell if you want updates. Check out my website, watchcomplications.com. In the description below, you'll find links to all these things. You could join as a member, get some photos or preview content of stuff that's coming down the pipeline. I'll give you the initial look at the 1945 in just a sec, but real quick, wrist check today. I am wearing the Helios Seaforth 2. It's summer. Kind of got a summer vibe going on. I'm extremely colorful today. I'm usually not dressed like this. I like my grays and blues and blacks, but just feeling that summer pop today. Interesting about this watch, this was the very first watch that I did a review on and threw up on YouTube. This was several years ago thinking, there's this cool new watch. I was lucky to get one. This is a rare gem, by the way. We won't go into all that detail. But look at my review on that. Very first one. Video is way different than the way you see things now. Back then, I didn't care so much about lighting and sound, and there was no real script to it. I had no intentions, and it's just amazing to see how everything has snowballed and gotten to where it is with regard to the channel and my own watch journey. I say all that because I have significant interest beyond just watches and watchmaking, and I want to keep this channel focused on that topic area. But I use, for example, 3D printing and modeling for things beyond making holders for watches. I, for example, recently created custom hooks to hang my Lego Saturn V rocket on my wall. I'll link to that particular video, which is the first real content one on the channel, and my intro video in the description below, and in the video up here somewhere for the new channel called No Escapement. I'll change the music and intro stuff in some way to be a little bit different than this channel eventually and set up different. But what I want to be able to do is have a little bit more of a vlog feel, more live streaming Q&A stuff, and share other topic areas that I have an interest in with my followers. And so if you have a general building and tinkering and making and engineering interest, you might enjoy what I'm going to plan to release there in terms of content. I'm going to get into Legos and more 3D printing and modeling away from watches, other stuff that I build and make. I'll do Kickstarter content and reviews on products like board games and fountain pens, other stuff I buy and I'm into, projects, traveling, programming topics. I have a tidbit. Sometimes you can see it over here in the corner. I like writing little applets and mobile apps and stuff like that. So if you have broad interest in some pretty cool topics, hop over to No Escapement. Just check out those initial couple videos and consider subscribing there. Help me launch that channel off. YouTube algorithms takes a while to get a channel growth unless you just kind of get lucky with something and it goes viral. But I don't even know how I got to the point I have with this channel going on 15,000 subscribers. But I would love it if you all could help me get that channel off the ground as well and be able to share and talk with a lot of you in other capacities and other areas of just cool making content. So now the first little look at the 1945 field watch. Of course, we'll flip the camera around in a second and take a nice up close look at it. It's got a lot of good qualities to it, like Vario watches typically do. It comes on this Cordura strap, which is like a mix of canvas and leather stitched into it. It's a small watch, so if you're in a small wrist size or just like smaller watches, this might be one, especially if you're just looking for something that's a good day-to-day watch, time only, great lume. I really like the crown on this particular watch. So let's flip the camera around and talk about the 1945. All right, so here we have the Vario 1945 Dirty Dozen D12 field watch. This is the need-to-know information about this new offering from Vario. It's currently under pre-order. I will have the link below so you can hit their website, vario.sg. It's a Singapore-based micro brand, and you can check it out. There are 4 models. I'll show those in a sec. But specs, diameter. This is on the smaller side. It's 37 millimeter. I measured 37.12. Nice and slim as you'd expect, along with that diameter, 11.18. Really reasonable lug to lug, a 45 millimeter. Strap and lug width, 18 millimeter. And we have only about 74 grams on this canvas Cordura Zulu style strap. I love the keepers on this. I am not into NATO sort of stuff at all, but I really like these straps from Vario. I've got quite a few of them, wear them on several of my watches. You know, some of the micro brands these days, they're just in the same ballpark when it comes to the fundamental materials that are being used. So as with many of the watches, with Vario, you've got a 3/16-ounce stainless steel, got a flat sapphire with inner AR. So in some of the light, you'll see sort of a blue tint to it as I run the lights across it. Getting the AR coating is going to help with the reflection and take some of that out, so it's a little bit easier to see. The time on this is extremely visible in like any light, and that's the point. If you were in a field or a trench, or it was at night, or different types of lighting situations, you just needed to tell the time, and you get that with this watch. Solid etching of a soldier on the back, so we can see that motif there. Yes, I've got my sticker on there still. It's not a review copy. I keep these watches that I get from Vario. We don't want an exhibition back on this type of a watch. It's a field watch, just a good solid case back, and care more about water resistance and those other things. We don't need a crystal on the back, don't need to see the movement, and it gives you that feel of what the watch is all about, the concept, the 1945 Dirty Dozen. Large screw down crown at 4. Now remember, it's a 37mm diameter, so it's a smaller case with this large crown. What looks like visually, on first glance, a large crown. I've really liked having the large crown. It's easy to grip, whether you're unscrewing it, because again, it's screw down crown, popping it out so you can set the time, or to wind it, to screw it back in. Really easy to interact with. So very well done, I think, on the crown. 10 ATM, 100 meter, 330 feet. So really good water resistance, what you would expect from a field watch. The movement in this, can't see it, but it's a Miyota 82S5, which is an automatic movement. So you don't necessarily need to wind it if you're going to use it regularly, at least every few days or something like that. It's gilded and all these other fancy things, but doesn't matter because it's all hidden in the case. It's got hacking and a small seconds complications, low beat rate 21.6. It's going to last a long time, won't be needing regulation very often. About a 40-hour power reserve, which is good for a smaller movement, 21 joules. As is common with Vario, you get a 1-year warranty. The price is, I think, a real good deal. $368 about US dollars. It's on pre-order. You can get a discount with some different codes that Ivan, the owner of Vario, puts out there. Right now there's a summer code, it's summer 8 or something like that. You get like 8% off, but usually there's like, if you're a new visitor to the site, or there might be special like through the year codes, you know, take advantage of that, get the watch for just a hair cheaper. You really just can't beat the watch for the price, in my opinion. In the Dirty Dozen look, with very basic numerals that stand out really well. Good application of the numerals and the lume. We got the broad arrow at 12. Again, another element of the Dirty Dozen design. The lume is a really good mix. This watch has all C3, which is a green lume. And the other 3 models also have a mix-in of BGW9, which is a blue lume. So on this cream model, and this is one thing to pay attention to, I think, with the different models if you're selecting one, you can see the numerals are black on this cream version, which aren't lumed, but they stand out in about any light just because of that color contrast between the cream and the black. The lume, which is this vintage yellow at the markers and at 12 with the arrow, and then also for the first time at Vario, I believe, if I recall correctly, the first time, the crown, the V on the crown is also lumed. And on this cream version, it's all green. But on the other 3 variants, which all have darker dials, the black and the green and so on, the numerals look white, and those are the BGW9 blue lume. So you get a mix of blue and green. There are several watches that have done this, and I really, really like when companies do this. As far as I know, Grand Seiko was the first sort of modern watch, at least that I know of, that has done this on one of their models. And then also Christopher Ward had an LE for the Christopher Ward Enthusiast Facebook group that it was really almost a mistake at one point in the development process, ended up with that mixed lume. And actually, I really like that. And even for myself, when I first thought about the notion of having a couple different lume colors on a watch face might seem like that's not going to look good. I actually really like it in practice. Now, it's not something I would want on every watch or all the time, but the right watch with the right markers or numerals or combinations or particular usage, when done well, can look really, really cool. So I'm a fan of that mixed lume. Strap it comes with is, as I mentioned in the intro, this Cordura. It's a very, very tough, not stiff, but very strong canvas style strap. And it's got the rivets in here, which will help keep it from unraveling a little bit. We've got leather stitched in. We've got the Zulu style keepers. And then we see the Vario name on this one on the end. So that is the ins and outs of the specs. And let's get into the pros and cons. All right, I'm going to throw my Helios down here, and I'll let you sort of drool over that as I put this on my wrist so you can get a look at how this looks on wrist. Now keep in mind that I have about a 19 centimeter wrist, 7.5 inches, 7.25 maybe, closer to, give or take. And so I typically like larger watches, 40 millimeter, really smallest I go is about 38 millimeter, up to about 43 is my general range. Let me pop out here just a hair. You can get a better overall sense. No, it's not on really tight. I'm just hairy. Come on. So this is a smaller watch, but you can see it doesn't look tiny, right? Even on a larger wrist, and it gets the job done. A field watch you want out of the way. You don't want it so bulky. I don't know, the Invictus of the world, or it's like a big dive watch. This is to slide under a cuff. This is not a dress cuff, but like a jacket, you know, an army jacket. This is meant to be very subtle, out of the way, tell the time. And again, variety of lighting, good lume. That's what we care about here. Big crown to interact with even while it's on the wrist. It's got all those elements that just make it a great all-around daily. I really do like the keepers on there. And solid construction, as I mentioned, great visibility at a glance, probably one of the biggest pros. It's exactly what you want out of it. The color schemes are pretty clever. I like them. I'd say my favorite one is the cream. I'll say one con related to that in a second, but it holds to the original. Love the lume across the different models. True field watch, quality materials, and good water resistance. I also really like these Cordura straps. Still gives that sort of, I don't know, rough and ready sort of look. So those are the pros. A couple other just sort of general things, not really pros or cons, but the brushing and polishing is good. You can see we've got a horizontal brush across the side of the case. Got some circular brushing on the back around the etching, then it's polished around the edge, and the bezel is polished. So we got a little bit of contrast and back and forth there, but I think I could have gone with it all being brushed. Again, not a pro or a con, but I think it's just that type of watch. This is going to get wear and start to get scratched up and fine. I'd almost, you know, take a little Scotch-Brite to all of it, get it all sort of brushed looking. That'd be kind of cool. So that's just my own take on that. And it's got a reasonable movement. The Miyota 82S5, it's being used in a lot of different types of watches right now. And, you know, it's going to get you by. It's really one you don't service as a movement. If something needs really replaced or fixed on it, it's like, kick that out, put a new one in. That's just the cost to work and time ratio for it. All right, let's get into the cons. And my first one is just specifically about this model, the cream version. It doesn't have the mixed lume. So we only have green C3 lume on this. The hands, the markers, the broad arrow at 12, and the crown. It looks great. It's great high quality lume, but all the other three models, the numerals are also lumed with that mixed, it's blue lume. And wish this model had a little bit of that too, but you couldn't go with white numerals on the, or a lighter color numeral on the cream dial, so it makes sense, but man, those other models look pretty cool. I'd almost buy one of them, like the black one, if you were gonna really go for the original 1945 Dirty Dozen look. You go black dial and it has that contrast. Now the main con that's going to come up in conversation with people probably is the size, 37 millimeters. So what a lot of people are just going to instantly write it off because of the size. You know, several years ago the watch industry was really on this trajectory of larger and larger watches, and that sort of turned a curve, and now there's more accommodation around people with smaller wrists, and so we've seen a little bit smaller watch trend, but still 37 is going to be small for a lot of people that would be looking at watches. in this price range or for micro brands. The original watch would have been small as well. These days, the purpose of watches is a little bit different, obviously. But I can see people saying, well, the con to this one is that it's a 37 millimeter watch. And you know what? I get it. I hear you. But that crown at 4 gives it a little bit more presence. A good heavy duty strap gives a little bit more on-wrist presence. And again, as someone with a little bit of a larger wrist, it doesn't look overly small. It doesn't look like it's this tic-tac on the wrist. It still has a good wrist presence and it gets the job done. Again, you want something small out of the way. It's worth considering. Don't just write it off because 37 millimeter and you've never even tried a 37 millimeter before, but I can see that being an issue for people. Now, the next thing on my con list is something that I think I understand why it was probably chosen as a design characteristic, but if you look at the original watches, they were all darker dials. And of course, the other models have darker dials. The logo was in that light contrast against the darker dials as well. And so the logo had that same emphasis and impact from a variety of brands, 12 of them, that showed who made that particular version model of the watch. What they chose to do on all the dials of this, regardless of which color, the cream or any of the darker versions, the logo is on the dial. You can see it there between center and 12. It's in relief, but it's using the same color. It's just flat as opposed to the granular surface. So essentially, the emphasis isn't on the brand name. I think that's a humble approach to this particular interpretation of this field watch design. And I think it was probably chosen that way. Let's not have the emphasis be on the brand name, but on the design characteristics of this historic watch and its purpose, what it was meant for. But I also think Vario's logo, name mark, whatever you want to call it, is ripe for the contrast on this particular design. If you look at the other models, this logo can fit in that, let's use a fancy word, pantheon of watches and go toe-to-toe with it, right? In the look, in the one little unique aspect about the watch you could have. So I just think Vario's name mark was well suited for contrast, not quite so subtle, but I also understand probably why that decision was made. That's really all I have for the cons on this. I mean, you can't argue for the price and what you get. If any complaints at all, this cream model would have liked to have mixed lume, understand why it isn't. The originals had that logo and contrast, understand why it isn't. Main thing really it's going to come down for people is, are they okay with the 37 millimeter? That's really it. And let's do some final thoughts. There we go. If you are in the market for a field style watch, just simple time only, great lume, good water resistance, smaller size out of the way. Again, this is 37 millimeters, so maybe that smaller wrist size. If you have a really big wrist or just don't like smallish watches, maybe not for you, but there I think is a broad audience out there for this kind of a watch that really does hold true to the original Dirty Dozen. We've talked about the pros and cons. I know a lot of people that watch the channel have probably already heard about Vario, and if you are considering this model, hopefully this video has given you a little bit more insight and detail and helped you make a decision if you want to pick it up or not. If you're new, just seeing my content for the first time, again, love to have you around. Hit the subscribe button, and if you like the video, thumbs up, and check out the site. As always, watchcomplications.com and my new channel, all things engineering, life. Check out No Escapement. Again, all the links are in the description below. Thanks for sticking with me through the video, and until next time, I'm out.